Good morning. This is the Innovation Conversation. We're back. Tom, you've been gone for a while. On vacation. It's great to see you. You look tan, rested, and ready.
Yeah, no, thank you. It's good to be back. I missed you. I missed everyone. I did feel, 2 weeks ago on the, we always record these on Tuesday before they air on Wednesdays, and I felt a void that day, in not getting together with you. So I'm glad we're able to now. But yeah, it was a good trip. Was able to
So tell
get out
everybody
of the country and.
So you did three. You were away for 3 weeks, and you
3
did
weeks.
Italy, the Netherlands, and Prague, right?
We did. Yes.
So
Yeah, we did. It was the itinerary really came about. My wife's Italian. We've always wanted to do Italy together. We've always wanted to do an Italy family trip, and we're able to get the 5 of us together, including, our one had just graduated college with the Saturday before we left.
okay.
Another one in college, and then our oldest is, in his career, working. He's actually down in Arizona, works for Carvana down there, and so he's already a couple of years into his career. So the opportunity to get the 5 of us together for a family trip was pretty darn special. And so we did. We flew over through Amsterdam, and we did Rome for 4 days, Monte Rosso, which is in the Cinque Terres. We did that for 4 days. Then we went over to Florence and did that for roughly 4 days. And then we went to Venice for a couple days. And then we went to Prague, which, is not usually part of an Italian itinerary. But we added that because our oldest studied in Prague and loved the city. And we had actually visited him over there. We love the city too.
And if I'm not mistaken,
when COVID hit, he had to get out
early because of COVID, right? Right.
He had to come back early, so he was always jonesing to get back there. So part of the lure to get him to come to Italy with us was we threw him a bone to go to Prague, which again, loved the city.
Yeah.
And then we wrapped it up in Amsterdam this weekend before coming home. So yeah, it was a long trip.
Yeah,
it was a long trip, but we loved it. We loved every minute of it.
So it's the Innovation Conversation. So let's I'm sure you bumped into a bunch of technological innovations in travel. I mean, travel has changed so much over the years. So, what kinds of things did you see out there in terms of the travel experience that you said, ooh, this is where retailers ought to be going. This is what retailers ought to be thinking about.
Yeah. It was, I'd say there's probably a couple of pieces of technology that, as we confronted them, were a little bit, kind of had you kind of have a ping of worrying about privacy, but then also quickly recognize that it's there to reduce friction and probably ultimately improve quality, right? So I would say the first thing we really noticed was in boarding our flight out of Seattle on Delta, we used facial recognition for boarding. Didn't have to scan our boarding pass. And so I assume the facial recognition is driven from, your boarding pass was scanned by them. So they did have a digital copy of your image in the boarding pass. And then they validated you by facial recognition. So that was pretty interesting.
You had the boarding pass on your phone, but you didn't have to scan it getting on the plane.
Yeah, still the boarding pass, didn't have to scan it though. Yeah.
Which sounds like it's
you just look at the camera.
Yeah. It sounds like it might have it's not the same technology. It's got to have some similarities to that technology that I talked about in the Detroit airport, right? Where it would scan your face and then be able to tell you up on the screen where your flight was, what gate, that sort of thing.
Yeah, that's pretty darn interesting. So that was cool. We also used facial recognition in, where were we? Was it when we were leaving? I don't know. We used it in leaving one of the countries as well. And then we used it again in boarding our flight back to Seattle.
Right.
We used it there as well. So that was cool.
By the way, while you were
the
gone,
other,
I was going to say, while you were gone, the story broke that there are a bunch of again, right now it's the lower cost airlines that want to start charging people for paper boarding passes. I don't know if you saw that story or not.
That's crazy.
It's like crazy. I mean, it's like, are they going to nickel and dime everything?
We
I'm
did fly
waiting.
Ryanair on one of our flights between, we flew from Venice to Prague. That was my first experience with Ryanair.
Don't you have to use a credit card to use the bathroom on Ryanair?
So that was, I think that's folklore, an urban myth. That wasn't true. But everything else was
Not true yet.
paper
That'll
performance.
happen.
Right, right. But they did a good job. They got us where we needed to be safely and on time and all that. So that was good. And then I guess the other piece of technology that was pretty interesting is, so Tricia, my wife and I, we have global entry. So, we can get home, and get through our own US customs pretty quick and easy. The kids don't, but the kids used an app called mobile passport control. And you'll see in some of the larger airports, you'll see a logo for MPC. And basically what that enables them to do is in the app, prior to their return to the US, they load their travel details in there. And some personal details, they have their passport and they put their passport number in and all that. So it's all in the app. And then upon re-entry, they took selfies. They had the selfies, uploaded or in the app as well. And then they were able to go in a very short line on re-entry as well, because all the administrative aspects of re-entry had been taken care of in there. And they really just had to go through the Q&A piece, which was pretty quick for three young adults like them. That was pretty interesting.
Now you did a lot of train travel, right? Has that experience changed much?
Yeah, I think
In a
for
long
us,
time
we
since
had
I've done this,
yeah, well, we did. I mean, everything inside Italy was by train, and we had a couple of instances where we had to connect. One was a particularly tight connection, that we were able to make thanks to having, the Trenitalia app, and we were able to, see, precisely when our train's getting in, the track it's coming into, the track we have to get to for the connection, and we're able to make that pretty efficiently. And look, you never think you could do it in 2 minutes, but because we had the app and we knew,
Right.
we could do it in 2 minutes. And then also just if you are going to miss a connection, being able to quickly via the app, know when the next one is and not miss a beat. And they were incredibly accurate as far as the timing. Like they were updated so real time. We used trains to get around in the Cinque Terres, and they were really accurate for that. We had some train track construction that was happening though. That was annoying, but otherwise the app was really helpful. So I would say lots of instances where technology made travel, where technology reduced friction in travel.
Well, that's the thing we always talk about right here is that, I mean, retailers need to be making decision, and not every decision is friction related, but any part of the store experience, and I'm talking back room as well as the front end, where you can eliminate friction, it makes total sense to do it, and becomes a game changer, right? It becomes the thing that says, I think many customers will say, I want to do that rather than this because it's just going to be easier.
I mean, friction causes two things, right? It causes frustration, and it can cause cost because it can make something take longer than it should. So, lots of, I think for retailers to think about, how I can use technology to reduce friction, both internally in my own operations and in my customer facing services. I think there's real benefit to that. I know we've tended to think about technology as like driving efficiency, right? And it'll make something quicker, it'll make something cost less, which I think there's a benefit there. But I think if you think about it in terms of friction, then I think you are being a lot more customer centric, because customers don't like friction, and you help them by reducing friction in their lives. And it may be friction, in how you shop, when you shop. It may be friction in, discovering recipes. There's so many ways a customer would engage with a retailer that reducing friction in that experience would be helpful. but then also, for your own team and how they go about doing their jobs, whether they're corporate jobs and you look at integrating and introducing new technologies into corporate functions, or, really importantly, if they're store related functions and they're executing at store level and interacting with customers, if you can reduce friction in their jobs and help them deliver their service, with less friction, they're going to be better at it. They're going to be happier. They're going to do a better job, and they'll probably be more efficient.
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting. I mean, again, a story that broke while you were away. In France, they passed a law that says if you can get there within the country, if you can get there by train, I think in 2.5 hours, you can't. They ban flights. In other words, but part of the reason they can do that is, I mean, they want to do it for environmental reasons, but part of the reason they can do it is because they have invested in the kinds of systems that you're talking about that you ran into in Italy, right? With apps and making it so much easier for people to travel that way. I mean,
Yeah.
when you've invested in the technology and you've invested in the infrastructure, it suddenly you can make other kinds of decisions that you might not have been able to make otherwise.
No doubt. And I mean, we could do a series of innovation conversations around, and we've done many in many areas already, though, around what becomes possible in the shopping experience when you identify these friction points and help solve them.
Yeah.
Again, we won't cover that today, but there's so many examples of that, and there's examples of retailers that are out there, pursuing this, and
Yeah.
we tend to look at the Amazons and some of the more innovative retailers for their pursuit of these, and then we also tend to, as Amazon maybe stubs their toe or is a little slower in rolling something out, right? We tend to discount, oh well, yeah, of course that took longer. That's never going to work, or whatever. But I just think that these retailers that are committed to reducing friction, that are ultimately going to win with customers, because people want less
Right.
friction.
So before we go, I got to ask you about food and wine and beer. Because I'm sure you saw. I mean, not we all, but many of us have watched the Stanley Tucci series and salivated while he went to all these places, and you actually went to some of them. So, what was it like?
Yeah, boy, it was great. And again, we could do a whole other series. Obviously, he did. We started our first food experiences were in Rome. Just amazing. Again, a wife who is Italian, who grew up on good Italian food, who's a damn good Italian cook herself. She was like in adult, I don't know, like Disneyland or whatever. I mean, it was awesome. Just the thing that really strikes you over there is, how hyper local their food sourcing is. And you can be just, a couple hundred miles apart between two cities, and you can see the difference in their cuisine based on what is available and fresh to them locally. Rome was very much, of course, pasta, pizza, a fair amount of seafood, and of course, lots of good wine. Monterosso up on the coast, more seafood. I think you saw more seafood in their dishes than you saw in Rome. When we made our way to Florence, known for their Florentine steak, which I don't know if people know, Florentine steak is like a 3 or 4 finger thick steak that is it's a T-bone, and it's good, but it's probably a little undercooked in the middle for my palate. But when in Florence, you got to go Florentine, and it was good. But definitely you saw more kind of beef and more meat in Florence, I think, than you saw in other places. And then Venice, obviously the city's built on water, and it's accessible basically only by boat. In that city, very much seafood. And one of the cool experiences we had there was in every city that we went to their fresh food markets. Just wonderful way to to just get the vibe of the city, get the vibe of the food scene, you know, see what's fresh, see what they're focusing on. And then you see the restaurants and the, you know, the chefs and the restaurant owners, you know, they're sourcing every day, you know, the products, which is pretty awesome. The Rialto market in Venice, which Stanley Tucci did feature. I think he had said too that I don't know if ever have been to Venice, but it's impossible to navigate. Like there's just it's just narrow
A
alley,
very
you know.
confusing city.
Yeah,
Yes.
a canal here, you know, a bridge here, and you think you're walking, you know, you think you got your path down, and it should take 15 minutes to get from one point to another. And 45 minutes into your walk, you're not even any closer than you were when you left. Um, and he had mentioned too that he had like a 2.5 hour walk to the Rialto market from where he was. But that market has been operating since 1097.
Wow.
So almost 1,000 years every day since then. And you know, just the amazing. It's not very big, but just the awesomeness of the presentation of mostly seafood,
Yeah.
a few other proteins and a little bit of produce as well. But you know, probably 70% of it is seafood. Just amazing.
Yeah.
Really amazing. And then I guess the other crossover to the Stanley Tucci, for anybody that's seen it, is we did hit that wine window
In Florence.
in Florence, and he was telling us, the gentleman who took us there was telling us a very similar story to the story that Stanley's friend was talking about the history of those. It was pretty cool, really cool,
Oh.
but lots of wine. Lots of wine. It's amazing the quality of wine you can get for like 30 euros
Yeah.
over there. And maybe we're just caught up in, you know, we're just caught up in the atmosphere, and maybe it isn't really that good, but man, it tastes good.
Well, I'm sure it tastes better because you're actually in Italy. I have to confess. I mean, I confess. I mean, I've been to Italy, and I've been to a trip that took me to Rome and Florence and Venice. But it was 1979. I was 24 years old. My palate and my taste have improved somewhat since then. And I don't think I went to an open market because I didn't. Why would I care about how food is sold?
Totally.
Why would
Yeah.
it matter? That said, I remember vividly having an enormous plate of gnocchi, which
Oh yeah.
I'd never had gnocchi before. And I remember that, and that's more than 40 years ago. So here's my question. Best meal you had?
Well, I will say my first meal was gnocchi.
Okay.
I had that very first meal, the very first night. You know, it was kind of late when we got there, and when I said I got to start with that, and it was amazing.
Yeah.
You know, I think our best meal, and you know, I mean, the meal is the combination of the quality of the food, the atmosphere, the service, the company you're with, and you know, I would say overall the favorite meal was Mother's Day night. We had just gotten to Monte Rosso. It was a beautiful night, calm, just you know, good temperature, kind of. It was maybe 21 or 22 degrees Celsius, which is right, you know, right in the wheelhouse of what you want. And we went to a restaurant, and I'm trying to see if I'd written it down. I don't have it, but it was literally on the edge of a cliff, looking out over the sea. You know, Mother's Day night, perfect setting, perfect wine, perfect time with the family. Thanking mom for, you know, all the work she did in putting the trip together, and that just was like the perfect moment.
Yeah.
It really captured just the essence of perfection in a meal.
That's
It was really fantastic, and
what did you eat? What did
but
you
many
eat?
good meals otherwise as
Do you
well.
remember what you ate?
I got it. It seems kind of lame, but I got a bolognese, but it was awesome.
Again, it's always going to be better.
Exactly.
Well, listen, thanks for sharing. We'll get
Sure.
back next time. We'll get back to our more traditional conversations. But I mean, listen, yeah, I'm ready to get on a plane right now. So
Anytime.
it
And
sounds
hey, maybe we'll get any Morning Newsbeat readers and watchers and listeners that want to sponsor
there you go.
Kevin and I to go over.
Maybe
And you
we
can
need
come
to
with
do
us. We would go in a second.
maybe we need to do a Morning Newsbeat charter trip. Maybe that's what we need to do.
There we go.
There we
Let's
go.
go.
We should do it. Hey, listen, great to see you. And I'll see you in a couple of weeks.
Sounds great, Kevin. Thanks, everyone.
Okay.
Great to be back.